Shalom Aleichem, brothers and sisters, and blessings to you in the name of Jesus, our Messiah. My name is Wesley Scott, and welcome to another edition of Roots of Faith. So it's Purim, one of the happiest, most celebratory holidays of the year, where it's all about joy, feasting, and reading the story of Esther. So I just want to set up with a few interesting points, starting with the book of Esther. Number one, God's name is not mentioned in this entire book. It is actually the only book where God's name is not mentioned. Song of Songs references him by title, but it doesn't actually mention his name. But this is the only one where there is absolutely no reference of God. It gives one of two biblical feasts that are not directly commanded by God. So I want to set the stage here. We're going to take a look at a few of the characters that appear within the story of Esther. First is King Ahasuerus. Let's start. The whole book starts with him having a banquet. Now, you may actually know him by another name, the name Xerxes, the Persian Empire. Perhaps you've seen the movie 300 or read the graphic novel. So if so, you have the perfect picture of what person this guy is. This arrogant, boisterous, I am divine and the world is mine, all bow before me. So he throws this great big banquet where wine is flowing everywhere, everything's made of gold. He's just demonstrating his entire wealth, showing everyone, hey, look who I am. So while he's having this great, extreme banquet, he desired to show off his beautiful wife. He was going to have her come out. He's like, have my wife put her crown on, come walk in front of all these men and let them see how beautiful my wife is, the queen who is married to me because I'm the best. So let's just show them all my wealth. They've seen my money, they've seen my wine. Now let's just let them see my wife. In fact, the rabbis, when they comment on this, believe that it was only her crown that she was actually going to be wearing when she was told to come forth and be admired by all these people. So she's brought to by the news by all these people, and she says, no. Probably most of you women would have the same response. He's lost his freaking mind. Well, Queen Vashti was very much one of those women, and therefore was dismissed from her queenship because this looked bad on the king, and you do not make anything look bad on the king. And then, if the queen does something, then all the other women are gonna go do something. So they say, no, we're gonna cut this. She's no longer queen. You need a new one. So she was removed, and we are in need of a new queen. So then enters our heroine, the one whose name is the title of this whole book, Esther. We are introduced to this beautiful young woman by the name of Hadassah, who is given the name Esther, the name that is equated with the rest of the Persian pagan goddess pantheon. And so she's brought in, told by her uncle to hide her faith as a Jew and kind of conform right in there, masquerade as just another beautiful Persian girl. And so she does. Her uncle, Mordecai, who actually raised her, her uncle's brother, gives her over, and he's trying to help her. Here's what you're going to do. They've taken you. Now you are going to play by their rules. do not disclose that you are a Jew. Well, quickly favor was given to her. She was esteemed above all the rest of the harem. And so now we jump to Mordecai. Mordecai is a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin. He is a righteous man, the uncle or guardian of Esther, and is given a distinguished position in Persia. In fact, he is probably a judge at the seat of the gate of the king, in which he overhears a conversation of two people who were trying to murder the king. Thus, he saves the king's life by giving that information to his niece Esther, and she discloses to the king. It's investigated, found to be true, and thus she is saved. And now enters our villain, Haman. He's very wealthy, full of pride, did not like those who did not esteem him as he saw fit. When it was brought to his attention that Mordecai, the Jew who refused to bow to this Agagite, he said, I must make an example, for no one can go unpunished for their treachery. So it brings us to the escalation. This man by the name Haman has this plan. So he sends out this decree, gets the king to sign off by telling him, my king, there are these people who live within the kingdom. They do not honor your laws. They do not give homage to what you say. They serve another deity. They live according to their own laws. They do not bow their knee at us. So the king says, okay, well, I'm going to take my signet ring. I'm going to give it to you. You can go ahead and put my signature on whatever you see fit. So he goes, he has this whole contract draws up. They start casting dice. They get the date set to go have the whole genocide of all the Jews in this Holocaust here. Mordecai finds out about this. He relents in mourning, and he dresses himself in sackcloth and approaches as close to the king's gate as he possibly could. So when Esther hears about this, she sends her eunuch out to find out and investigate why is Mordecai dressed in sackcloth crying at the king's gate. Well, he tells her exactly the command that has gone out, that all the Jewish people are throughout the kingdom of Persia are going to be annihilated. So Mordecai encourages her, it is up to you now. You must save your people. Take some action on Esther's part. She is told, hey, now it's set for you. The ball is yours to go and save us, because guess what? We're all gonna die. But Esther here has not been summoned to the king's court for over a month. Now she has to go before him, in which could be the cost of her life. So she goes before the king, and he extends his golden scepter to her, allowing her to actually speak, which in the Medo-Persian Empire was the only signet of someone who is not authorized to enter the king's court to come and speak. So she's granted that favor, and he hears her request. So now Haman, he's filled with pride because Esther invites him and the king only. So he gets all puffed up. He's really annoyed that Mordecai doesn't see him as divine, so he plans to have him murdered, sets up about a 75-foot stake for him to be impaled upon. So Haman thinks vengeance will soon be his. So he gets really puffed up. He goes to get permission from the king to go to claim all of Mordecai's property. So at this point, the king can't sleep. He's had one banquet with Esther, and the next banquet's coming up, and he's just having a horrible night, just tossing and turning. So he does what will put anyone to sleep. A historical record be brought to him to be read, so he can hear all the deals and everything that have gone on, all the accounts and all the information that's going on within the kingdom. Well, this part comes in where Mordecai saved his life. And so he's wondering, well, what's been done for the man who saved my life? Well, he finds out nothing. So he goes and says, well, okay, something's got to be done. Who did I just hear enter into the courtyard? And the guy's like, well, Haman, your second in command, he's come in. And so he's like, bring him in here, I need his advice. So Haman, the advisor, comes in, and the king says, what's to be done for a man the king wishes to honor? And of course, you know, the conceited Haman, he's like, oh, this king's gonna honor me, everything just keeps getting better and better. So he goes and he says, well, here's a huge list of all these great things. Put your diadem on a horse, give him your fine robes, go have someone else of honor go lead him through, and tell everyone this is what's done for the person the king wishes to honor. So then the king says, okay, you go do that for Mordecai the Jew. So now Haman has to go through the streets parading Mordecai, the man who he cannot stand and he's about ready to murder, and proclaim honor to him from the king. Well, this was just humiliating. So he goes home and he starts crying like a little baby and says, woe is me, as long as Mordecai is alive, how can I stand my life? Well, the prophecy of his family comes in and says, now you will not prosper. This is a sign. And then he's rushed off to the banquet with Esther and King Ahasuerus. Now, when he enters in, the king says, my dear, what is it that you want? Anything. Up to half my kingdom is yours. And she says, well, I didn't really want to trouble you, but the problem is someone has planned to kill me and all my people. And this upsets the king. He's like, what type of person would do such a thing? So she looks at him and then she just points her finger over to Haman and says, the adversary Haman has made the decree. Well, you could imagine the silence of the room. You could hear the pin drop, and they're like, whoa. The king just fists on the table. You just picture him getting up, marching himself out in fury, and Haman, scared to death, goes, oh no, my queen, forgive me, grant me my life. And when the king comes back, what does he do but find him grabbing at her robe and is just infuriated even more. He's bagged over the head, led out, and said, what is going to be done about Haman? And they're like, well, there's a 75-foot pole outside that he was going to have Mordecai impaled on. So what does Ahasuerus do? Well, impale Haman on it. Give all his stuff to Mordecai. So then they're asked, we'll see what is to do about this decree. Because according to the Medo-Persian law, what the king has written, the king is divine. Because under Near Eastern culture, the king can't make a mistake. So there has to be an amendment done. So Esther and Mordecai say, What is to be done, my king? So what does the king do? Takes off that signet ring again and says, well, here, go do something about it. And so Mordecai makes the decree, and they give the Jews the ability to fight back. And in fact, on the 14th of Adar, they conquer the enemy. It's noted as a day of fasting. Mordecai, throughout chapter 9, writes all these proclamations of this is what we will remember of the adversary against our people. So what does this all mean? What is the point of Purim? What does it have to do with me, especially if I'm a Gentile? And is this something that we should keep celebrating? This happened in 400 something BC. Is it still relevant for today? Well, if you want the point of Purim, I say open your Bible up, turn to Esther chapter 4, where it says, Mordecai told the messenger to reply to Esther, don't think that you will escape the fate of all the Jews, because you are in the king's palace. If you keep silent at this time, liberation and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place. But you and your father's house will be destroyed. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to the royal position for such a time as this. Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Go and assemble all the Jews who can be found in Susa and fast for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days, day or night, and my female servants will also fast. In the same way, after that, I will go to the king, even if that is against the law. If I perish, I perish. So I think verse 14 right there really kind of hits the nail on the head, and it's kind of the hinge of the entire book. What is the point of Purim? Well, we've looked at a few major players. We've looked at Ahasuerus or King Xerxes, this arrogant, boisterous god king who thinks everything in the world is about him. We've looked at the heroine of the story, Esther, who is this young lady given all these hurdles just to try and save her people. We've looked at the righteous Mordecai, who stands as a judge in the king's palace, who is esteemed to an even higher position as second in command of Persia, whose job is to guide Esther to be able to make the right decision. We've seen the wicked villain Haman, who believed that it was his duty to exterminate the Jewish people. But what about God? Is this story really about him orchestrating everything from behind the scenes? The great playwright who has built this story up to tell us and give us an educational understanding of when to do right? Perhaps the point is not in a person, but it's in the action. If I perish, I perish. These words continue to ring as true today as they did 400 BC. We celebrate not the deeds of one person, but the catalyst from which courage happens. The story of Esther is not about her or a single character's rise, but that we have a choice to do what is right. And we must follow the call that is laid before us. So, now the question is, what does it have to do with me? Well, if you grew up in a Jewish home, you know, it's the story of your people. But what about if, like me, you're a Gentile, you don't have any Jewish known blood in you? Well, let's take a look at the importance here. I ask you the first question. Are you in Messiah? Are you a believer in Jesus the Christ? Yeshua HaMashiach, the Jewish Messiah? If so, then you have been grafted into that people. You are part of the promised nation of Israel. This is your heritage too. We are co-heirs. It's not, well, this is their story, I have my own. This celebration is more than just a military victory. It's the salvation of an entire people group from being completely destroyed. People who bear the very image of God were not led to the slaughter, but were given salvation through the acts of others. Do we still look at the Holocaust and remember what happened there? You can make the same argument that we look at the travesties again. We look at God's promise to a nation that are kept, and He says, "I will protect you." And we celebrate the story of courage and Yahweh our God's divine sovereignty and leading people to the place of decision making. So let's look at Purim and its celebration. Mordecai wrote this here in Esther 9:26-28 to be proclaimed throughout all the nations of the Medo-Persian Empire. For this reason, these days are called Purim, for the word pur, because of all the instructions in this letter, as well as what they had witnessed and what had happened to them. The Jews bound themselves, their descendants, and all who joined them to a commitment they would not fail to celebrate these 2 days each and every year, according to the written instructions and according to the time appointed. These days are remembered and celebrated by every generation, family, province, and city, so that these days of Purim will not lose their significance in the Jewish life, and their memory will not fade from their descendants. So should we celebrate Purim? Yes. So let's go out, let's have a great time, and whichever way you decide to celebrate, whether it's watching a movie about the story of Esther, or reading the book, or perhaps even going and just having a big party, dressing up in costumes, and just having a joyous time. I mean, that's how the book starts, and that's how the book ends. So why should we not have one of the most joyous festivals of the year at this time? So I thank you for watching, and if this ministry has been a blessing to you, like and share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like us on Facebook, and drop us a comment to let us know how we can further minister to you. And so I just give you the blessings of our Messiah, and shalom.